Now I know you can hear me.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you guys for coming. Just so you know, we did not have an executive session at 6:30. That was canceled. At this time, I'd like to recognize any resident or taxpayer in this area school district wishing to address the board about title programming or any other matter concerned raised in a public session. Please give your name and address and the subject of content you'll be addressing, and try to keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Pete, can I make a couple comments before we do the public?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Sure.
We can't hear it.
Okay, I'll speak out loudly, I just, so wanted to make a few comments before the public comment section, and I actually would also like to recommend that we hold the public comment segment after our board discussion, but obviously prior to the board vote. I just think it would be good for the public to hear where the board is sitting before we hear their comments. It's just my perspective. And please understand that these comments are my personal perspective as a member of this board. However, they do not reflect the perspective of this entire board, at least not at this point. While it's clear that the lives of our football student athletes are going to be impacted in some way, to my knowledge, a decision on football has not been made, contrary to what is in the public. And although I can't sit here and confidently state that that's not where we're going to end up when it's all said and done, but at this point, it's premature. I believe we need, this is again me personally, we need to have one objective at this time, and that's to secure a football co-op with Athens, all in, JV and varsity. And until we are definitively told by Athens or the PIAA that a co-op is not possible, all of our energy needs to be focused on this objective to gain approval from Athens and subsequent approval from the PIAA. In my opinion, this objective maximizes the opportunity for all of our student athletes. If and only if that fails, do we fall back to a less desired outcome and understand that some student athletes will reap the benefits of, let's say, a JV-only program. We as a district have failed by not finding a solution for all. And we are accountable for that failure, mostly because we have not better understood our situation much earlier and provided adequate time to pursue available opportunities. Therefore, as we sit here today at the 11th hour, we need to aggressively pursue an all-in football co-op with Athens, because I, for one, want to see everyone with interest have an opportunity. I'm only hoping that Athens can look past our lack of clarity and changing direction. Finally, while tonight we will be voting specifically about our football program, our attention needs to quickly turn to a much broader topic. What is the future of K-12 education in the Valley? Academic and extracurricular. Something that I brought to the Sayre School Board in 2017 via resolution, and again in 2018. Both times recommending pursuing serious discussions with the Athens School Board, both times leading to a dead end. Some will say you got the answer, so let it go. But I guess I'm a bit stubborn, because I think there is interest. We just need everyone with interest to step forward. There is no doubt that Sayre is in a more difficult position given the declining enrollment due to an aging population, unreasoned geographic school district boundaries, lack of housing options, etc. And there may be many that disagree, but neither Athens nor Sayre are in an ideal situation. That's validated by many professionals working in the community who choose to live outside the two districts because of housing and education. Again, my opinion, we can be better together, and we need to begin that journey with diligence and focus. Let's get together with a clean slate, lay out a vision for the ideal school district to support this valley, and then determine how to best use our collective resources to achieve that vision. This football situation is bringing this topic to the forefront once again. I'm confident we can preserve the rich history of both school districts, but our job should be to look to the future. Let us come together, not as Sayre or Athens, but as one community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. I would just like to say personally, I'm not a sports guy, and I know we're here tonight to talk about football. What I am, though, is dedicated to our children. My children, your children, belong to the school district in this community. It's broader. The thought process is broader. It's not about football. It's about football. It's about cheerleading. It's about band. It's about the artists that paint the field every year. It's about the fans that come and watch our students play. It's about the younger kids in the elementary school that come and watch their big brothers play and big sisters cheer. So we have to keep that in mind, that it's not just about one individual team, it's about all of us. Any other director would like to add anything before we get started?
the only thing I'd like to add too, as well as what Mr. Petrini said, is again, one of the reasons why I got on the Sayers School Board was because of the kids here in our district. And that means, you know, to support them in athletics, to support them no matter what they do. And a lot of people probably sitting out there know me, as well as my board members know me. I try to attend as many events as I can, sports, music, plays, etc. And like I said, I'm all on board for whatever is going to make the student population more enriched. But one thing I've gotta tell you folks is this, is that one of the main reasons why we're here is to make sure that these kids are properly educated to go out into this entire world. Again, don't get me wrong, I like football, I like basketball, I like I like the plays, I like everything like that. But the whole thing is this is to encourage everybody to try something out. And again, I agree with Mr. Skirpon too, with the aging population, etc., with what is going on out there as far as athletics and band and etc. is what is going on out there right now. But one thing again, we do have to remember is as a board member, is to focus on what our main duties are here, and that is to make sure that this school district is properly run. And the way that we make sure that that's properly run is to make sure that we have fine academics and fine extracurricular programs. And again, what takes priority there is, you know, and again, I'll let you guys answer that as far as what takes priorities there. But just wanted to make mention of that, and like I said, whatever the decision that is made here, like I said, I will be a backup for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. So I do kind of agree with Mr. Skirpon on the one aspect that when it opens up to discussion, we'll open up the floor to discussion from everyone. So that way we can keep things moving forward. Any other board member have a comment?
I'll have a comment, so is it possible to get a rundown of like everything, all the steps we have taken as a district to this point? Thank you.
We can do that during discussion.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the one item on this agenda is athletics, and it's to recommend the board approve a junior varsity schedule for the high school football team for the 2020 fall season. Information from District 4 high school seniors may play on a junior varsity team.
Do we know that's a definitive answer?
We have that in writing from the District 4 chair, Ms. Fenner.
The seniors can play?
Yeah, you guys gotta speak up or.
So we do have that in writing from Chris Venna.
I'm sorry.
From District
Sorry,
4?
Mr. Shaw.
Oh, he's waiting, I can hear you, but.
Yeah. So yes, we've been in communication with District 4 and Chris Venna, we have that in writing from him, okay?
Okay,
Absolutely.
that's absolute.
I have that in writing from him, I have the.
Because he's not PIAA, he's just a
District
District 4
4.
rep, so
District
just wanna
4.
make sure.
Yes. Well, I did
Because
say
it-
District 4.
It's possible
Okay.
that PIAA will say, Mr. Ben is incorrect, and PIAA is not. So I just want a clarification.
Sure, I have that from District 4.
So anyway, I have a recommendation.
Can you turn your microphone down? Maybe share that.
Not catching.
I know that it's tough because that
I think what we
the
need
air
to do
back
is
there.
make sure they're in front of whoever might be talking. Okay.
So there is a recommendation on the floor. Do we have a motion?
Motion for approval.
I have a motion. Do we have a second? So we have no second. So in that case, this recommendation is void. With that, I would open up the floor for discussion. So, like I said before, I'm not an expert in athletics at all, but you know, I know Dr. Delosio has reached out and has everything in place that kind of brought us here. So, I'd like to go ahead.
Sure, I can Chair. So the recommendation comes from thinking through a variety of multiple lenses for all students and all the various curricular activities. I took a lot of time to review the notes that I took Monday night from the concerned parents that shared all their different points of view, and I appreciated every one of them that spoke. Furthermore, I took more concern from the coaches and listening to them. Both Coach Orton and Coach Orman spoke about just not a number, but the individual student players and what they bring to the table and what they might need to do differently in order to be playing at a varsity level. Their readiness as athletes and their need to grow and gain experience. So I thought about the band that's been practicing and prepping for the fall season. I thought about the cheerleaders that have been practicing, ready to go for our bowl as well. The commitment and time that each one of those squads, band, have put into the team. I've thought about the traditions that have been here at Sayre, homecoming, the Rusty Rail, a variety of all of those components that bring the community into our bowl. I also thought about Athens and their school community. I thought about co-oping is a huge ask, especially in August, and I think that it's even a bigger give from Athens if they're so gracious to do so. It is my understanding that they would be required to move up a class based on our enrollment numbers, meaning that they would have to change their season schedule at this point in time if they graciously accept. Moving up a class would also require not only building a new schedule for this season, but giving up their postseason for the next 2 years. And I would say that Mr. Stage is here, I don't want to call any, but if I speak out of turn on that, you can certainly speak out. I appreciate it, Mr. Stage. So over the past few days, not everybody thought about that, I called Mr. Stage Tuesday morning to have the conversation and ask about the co-op. There's been communication back and forth. We talked about the seniors being permitted. We talked about running a JV team. PIAA does not allow that. It's all or none. So I do know that for sure. I did then, unbeknownst to me, received a call from a colleague out of New York State. They have a team for 8-man play for the varsity students, and they simply offered at the table. They have an opening. It would be a guaranteed 8-game play. No postseason, as it's a New York league for our seniors and possibly our juniors that play varsity. That would still give our JV team here and the band and the cheerleaders to participate in those. So we investigated that option as a possibility. We then worked through, the person that called me, my colleague, even took it upon himself to call the New York Athletic Commission team to see if they would approve a Pennsylvania team, and the answer was a yes. Then we reached out to our end on PAAA. Mr. Howie has been working through many different questions, and so that's not allowable from Pennsylvania. But I wanted to share some of the work that has been done over the course of this week. So co-oping is giving up our program for the next 2 years. A co-op is not for one season at a time. It's giving up the band that we have, the cheerleaders. It's the student camaraderie that comes together at the bowl. So I believe it's harder to rebuild a program if they're not here in ours. So the administration made the recommendation that did not get a second motion, but I certainly wanted to let you know my steps and thought processes and feelings, and I can tell you it was sleepless nights. It's not a light recommendation. It wasn't, and it was trying to think of the majority of the student body and all the activities that have around it, and not a small few. So that was the reasoning and the rationale and the steps that I have taken since Monday evening. Additionally, I think it is time for the athletic committee to work collectively to right-size our district and have the right number of sports available for our students based on the size of our enrollment. And I'm hoping that the athletic committee will come together and make that decision and bring it back to the board of how many sports should we have each season for the students' enrollment that we have here at Sayre. I believe that when I got here, we are approximately half the size of Athens, but we offer the same number of sports, was my understanding. So I feel like we need to right-size those number of offerings. Okay, that's what work I've done and information.
Bill, is there a reason why we, band and cheerleading, we couldn't come to a cooperative solution there? reason why band and cheerleading, we couldn't have some cooperative solution as well.
I'm not sure that there would be a cooperative solution. I was just, thinking about the whole here in the Sayre traditions that occur.
Because I agree completely with Pete's earlier comment that, it is about everything associated, but I think there's the same opportunity there. Granted, we're at the 11th hour, I mean, there's no question about that.
So that's another thing, right? We're at the 11th hour. Here we are again, talking about sports at the 11th hour.
Why are we at the 11th hour? I think that's what the
Well,
community wants to know.
that's my question, Ms. Severdini, that's my question. Why are we here? What happened? So,
Lack of leadership, that's what happened.
Margaret, please.
But if
So,
we're-
what I
That's
wanna
what
know
happened.
is, so we have 25 kids for football, and that's our number, and I get it, there's many levels of ability, thank you, in those kids. And there's always concern about getting hurt. When it's football, there's always concern about somebody getting hurt. So, and I don't know, I mean, if we have the kids, where are we at? Where did we fail them? I mean, why didn't we, if we knew at the beginning of the year where our last year's kids were at, why didn't we prepare them better for this season? What did we do different? I mean, did we run a spring program? Did we run summer camps? And I don't know, because like I said, I'm not a sports guy. I don't know. How did we get to?
I think as a taxpayer, I'm asking after today, we should be looking forward to the next seasons and the next sports. This isn't just a football problem, this is a problem in almost every sport that we have. And it's time, like Mr. Skirpon said, we need to stop the bleed. The district, the school board members, we need to be forward thinking and start to consider to stop the bleed within our district. We have academic problems, we're lacking teachers, we don't offer the academics, we're not able to offer the extracurriculars. For me, it's not just about extracurriculars, but you're looking at the academics as well, and we're not able to offer these things.
I want to
So-
clarify one thing, Mr. Sodi, your academics. So a couple meetings ago, a few months ago, I had a member of the audience ask for sustenance. They were tired of all the fluff at the board meetings. So we had our learning loss facilitator at the time, Cambria Ely, she came and gave us sustenance. Of course, there was nobody in the audience to listen to that. And she talked about our grades and our test scores and how well they've improved since the last time, how great our teachers have been to put those kids academically on the right path. And then that was overshadowed with cross-country. Not to.
I was here for that.
Oh, I wasn't sure. but-
Mr. Petrini, I've been here for all but 2 meetings in the last 3 years, and you know that. So when you said nobody's here to hear it.
No, but nobody was
Right.
here to, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And
And
then
no
that's,
one's, no one's faulting the teachers.
and that's a broad, and
Okay.
Mr. Shaw, that's a broad
That's
statement,
kind of
right?
hurtful to
But-
those that show up like
I'm
Candy
not
and
faulting
myself,
the
so.
teachers, this isn't about the.
No, but I'm just saying, that
It's the lack of,
people say our academics
the
are,
lack of resources.
but they're coming online. We've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on technology to get these kids to one-on-one, to put smart boards in the classroom. You know what I mean? So I'm tired of hearing all of that when that's not what the data's showing.
It's
So
not that
anyway,
the students
I
are
just-
doing well, it's the idea that.
But they are doing better.
Right,
They're
we need to,
doing
maybe we
better.
should co-op on the academics then as well, because we need to offer these other things.
I get that. I'm not saying that that's
Yeah.
something we shouldn't be looking at, but I'm just saying we are doing better.
So are we gonna be able to speak, or are you guys still gonna talk before we get?
Well, I was just getting to that.
Okay, I was checking.
Is there any other board member that wishes to add anything to what Dr. Delosio had to say? And then-
I have a question. So, I know in the PIAA rules and regulations, it states that it must be a school that directly borders or overlaps. But, I'm adding a big but, because in 2020, there were multiple co-ops. There were multiple co-ops throughout the state of Pennsylvania that were two school districts that did not border each other, and PIAA allowed it. So, do we know for 100% fact that PIAA would not allow us to reach out to another school? Like, have we talked to them, asked if we could get like something extra? There are other, obviously we border Northeast, they don't have a football program, it's not really gonna help us with that. but there are other schools within distance that it's a possibility. So have we talked to them and asked them 100%, it's not even like a feasibility to do it? I mean, it's published in a news article, I shared it with the board today, like, there are multiple schools that have done it. And the rules haven't changed, so obviously they've set precedent to allow it, so I think it's something we need to investigate.
So my response, right, so if I can just respond to you, in the Constitution, the rules that have been brought forward, it is a neighboring district, and then you shared that article today, so now that I know that that's open.
I just found it today,
I know
sorry.
you just found it today, and so I think it was a golf team and a soccer, two school
It was a
districts that were
golf
not
team
sharing a
and a
border,
soccer
a soccer team, golf, and that, right. That was surprising to me that when I read that news article that you shared, so thank you.
So just something that we as a district also need to look at, because, I mean, there's other districts out there, you don't have to co-op everything with one district.
Why would we move to different districts?
Yeah.
Athens is on the border here. The situation now is because we waited too long. If this had been addressed months ago, would we be in the situation with Athens be able to say, yeah, we can take you, yeah, we have 6 months to figure out what to do with all these kids and all these programs? It's not gonna do any good now to reach out to other districts that are nearby and say, it's August, we have no football team. Why would, I mean, it's bad enough that these kids are gonna have to play for another school, they're gonna go here, they're gonna wear uniforms, but now you're saying, you might have to go, they're in Athens, you're gonna play soccer, you wanna wrestle, you might have to wear a Northeast uniform. I think that defeats the purpose of trying to keep everybody tight knit and the point you're trying to make. I don't think that makes sense.
But we're at the 11th hour, so if Athens is not an option for our seniors, maybe Towanda could be an option for our seniors.
Not to interrupt, but won't it be the same situation, Tawanda will have to give up?
I don't know the
2 years?
numbers at Towanda, and I don't know if it bumps them up a class to add our enrollment numbers. I believe that's the situation
But
of
they'll
why that
still have to
happens.
forfeit district play afterwards, or is that only because we're gonna bump the number of students up?
I believe it's if the numbers bump, you have to forfeit the two supposed.
So you know, Mr. Shaw, you know, so PIAA, if you co-op with any school, is it,
If you get bumped up, correct me if I'm wrong, if you get bumped up a class, then you have to forfeit.
so if you
But it
don't,
doesn't-
I think it's only in the off cycle though. It's only in the off cycle.
Only in the off
If
cycle.
this would have occurred in the on cycle.
Last October.
Yeah.
October first, you have to do it.
And did anybody honestly call PIAA about the situation prior to Monday, today, or otherwise, to get a definite and concrete answer?
Mr. Howie actually spoke to the number 2 on PIAA today, he was at the meeting. But I
So-
wanna go back and say about like, for example, the soccer co-op that we put into place last August with Athens. Because Athens already chose to play up a level, did not have to give up your postseason when you graciously accepted a co-op with us, correct?
That's right.
Thank you, Mr.
That's right.
Are we co-oping again with Athens this year for soccer?
Yes.
Yes, so we did have a meeting early on in the spring, and we had conversation, and we set dates and deadlines, and the athletic committee then met in June, right? I had till June 15th to send a memo of information to Mr. Stage about what fall sports we would wanna co-op. August 15th is winter sports, and I believe December 15th is spring sports, or maybe November, it's in my calendar, so I know that for sure. I put it on the first of the month, so on Monday, my calendar read, by August 15th, notify Athens about the winter sports. So we had that conversation in the spring, and we knew that our cross-country numbers were in jeopardy, and our soccer numbers were still low, so we maintained those 2 co-ops. We asked to maintain those 2 co-ops, okay? All right, thank you.
So we are
co-oping
cross-country.
cross-country with Athens?
So, we had that in place, Mrs. Berry.
Okay.
And then, there were individuals that came forward to the board, they presented their, admiration and reasons why, and then the board made a decision on a vote, I believe at the June 20th meeting, to rescind that off.
Okay, I just
You're,
wanted,
thank you for
But the
asking.
last
I'll
meeting I was
clarify.
at, it was still going, because they were here to complain about it. So,
you missed the one that goes with.
that, okay.
Yeah, so I believe Mr. Shaw was the
You weren't
June
at all-
20th meeting.
I said all but 2, sir.
So does that mean, do we have cross-country on our own, or we don't have cross-country? Do they have cross-country? What's our,
I believe both schools have it.
Okay.
Yes, we have cross-country.
okay.
Thank you.
So has Athens already said no to co-op for football, based on everything that you've
They don't have a voting meeting until August 16th. So I made the call. The board is meeting tonight on a special meeting. Whatever they decide to put a motion forward, then I respond with a formal request on letterhead to Mr. Sage, the same as I've done with every other request that's occurred. So, but I do know that they do not have a voting meeting. They have a work session next Tuesday and then a voting meeting on August 16th.
What's the official start of the season?
Heat acclimation starts on Monday.
Yeah, is that the official
Yeah.
start of the season?
Yes.
I believe so, yes.
So they could potentially down in next week do heat acclimation here, and then if it could come to fruition.
They
then-
could, I just don't know what the PIAA guidelines are relative to when the request is made. That's why, again, we're at the 11th hour. We don't control the situation here. That's why, words I use were aggressively pursue, and I agree from my perspective, it's easy for me to say it, but I believe aggressively pursue means aggressively pursue, and that means, one, I'll put the motion on the table relative to request a formal co-op with Athens. I think it would be, they have to jump through hoops. They would have to take action, literally as quickly as possible. I'm thinking maybe heat acclimation is a week of, not the official start of the season. I don't know. Maybe there's some boundary there.
And coach is behind you, so we can ask him if that's the official start to the season.
You have to be, so everyone has to be heat acclimated. Everyone has to be heat acclimated. They have to do 5 consecutive days, or 3 consecutive days, or 5 consecutive days. 5 to be acclimated. So, if someone came in on a Wednesday because they were on vacation,
Need 5 days.
this is still gotta be 5 days, and then when they come in on a Wednesday and it hits like that next, then they're acclimated and they can get into full pads or whatever, and they can scrimmage and do everything, so it's 5 consecutive days. That's why they always give you the option to do Saturday if you wanna start on a Tuesday. You can either start Monday or you can start Tuesday. If you start Tuesday, you gotta rest on Saturday.
Yeah, and it's a technical question from my perspective, because I believe, and again, I don't know the handbook upside and down, but I believe a co-op has to be, especially in an off cycle, a co-op, the request has to be before the official start of the season. So I don't know what that technically means. I would like to think, we could get, again, if we aggressively pursue, we could get some people to listen given the circumstance. But we have to take action. And thankfully and thank Pete for getting this meeting tonight. Because otherwise we weren't gonna move forward in any way, any way, shape or form. So, don't know the outcome, but I'll put the motion on the table that we should officially request a co-op from Athens.
But have they made any requests for the band and cheerleaders? What I'm hearing is they've not.
Well, I guess I'll
That should all be done
put that all in the bucket. I mean, I look at the cheerleader situation, and this is just me logically thinking, so I mean, you shoot all the darts at me you want, but we could have 2 cheerleading squads.
Amen. I agree with you saying what you
work.
meant.
But we don't know if
They-
that's.
But
No,
that's
what I'm
what we
saying
should-
is,
that's
what I'm
what we
saying is
should
that they could, that if the football team's co-op, let the 2 cheerleading groups go and both cheer for the same team. That could happen. The band's a little more complicated, because obviously they've gotta collectively work to make that happen. But
My question is, do we know that the regulations allow all that, just like there's problems with the football team? No one's even asked.
I don't think there's any well, I could be wrong, but it's not, our band and cheerleaders aren't governed by PIAA, so.
Well, cheerleaders are, Mr. Script, like cheerleaders are.
Cheerleaders are.
Cheerleaders are.
You're a competitive cheer, that means speaks conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. So in regards to the cheerleading thing, yeah, it'd be great if we could go take our cheerleaders over and cheer at Athens. That'd be wonderful. But we, at the request of, I believe, the athletic committee or Mr. Claypool, and I'm speaking as a junior high coach, not the head coach, we have a competitive component to it now, so we are part of PIAA. And still get that part of cheer, so I'm just gonna say that. Also, there's junior high cheer, and maybe ninth graders could come down and cheer in junior high if we still have a junior high football program, because we've done that with other things, allowed ninth graders to cheer down. So in no way, shape, or form am I saying, you know, that I don't want the cheerleaders involved, because of course we do, but you're missing the fact that they also have a competition component. I cannot speak for the band.
I'd like to say something in regard to the band. I emailed the board, and I would hope that you all read it, but from what I'm hearing, it sounds like some did not. For you to say that the band can easily come together, that's not true. Our band.
That's not what he said.
I didn't say that. I said the band is more complicated than cheer.
Okay,
I,
but,
yes, I agree wholeheartedly.
So my thought was done, with you speaking, was both cheerleaders cheer the sidelines and each band perform, because they've already started.
And you could possibly.
This
do that
year,
as well.
this year is, because we're late, but that's what I was thinking we're talking.
There are a lot of options with a good collaborative discussion that I think could be pursued, but again, we're at the 11th hour.
Dr. Reel, didn't you say we have to be all levels co-op or not?
My understanding is that the JV and varsity is a full co-op.
Okay, so junior high can stay separate.
That is my understanding.
Okay.
I have them
Okay.
all in an email chain
Right.
that's been forwarded to me. We cannot separate JV and
Okay.
varsity. So
When you
that's
said
why,
all, I thought it
once I
included
thought about
junior
that and the other individual groups that participate in all those pieces, that's why I put that recommendation.
Okay, I thought when you said all or none, it meant junior high as well.
No, 9 to 12, but thank you for the clarity.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. So didn't you say that the co-op was 2 years?
That is my understanding.
That's your understanding?
Less.
So I'm gonna defer to those who, BIAA, and I know
I have
Mr.
two more
Stage.
questions, so.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll let you know when I'm done.
Okay.
So if it's 2 years, and we have enough for the junior high program for both cheer and football, and then those kids all have social media, they all have parents at home, they're probably watching this, all right? So they're gonna come here and they're gonna play, and I want them to play, everybody here wants them to play. They're gonna play football, and they're gonna know they're gonna have to go to Athens. We're just gonna keep trying to feed our junior high program for 2 years, and then maybe from there, rebuild up. That's our goal at this point. If we're lucky enough to have Athens stay there.
So I'm not sure what the board's gonna put forward as a motion.
Okay, whatever they
My
put forward.
overall motion was already on the agenda for this evening.
Okay, and then my second part is, again, more junior high related. Last year, the junior high cheerleaders were traveling with the junior high football team. So if we could get that to happen this year, with the only possible football team we may have, that'd be nice.
So if I could share with you, I pulled the numbers this morning, so I would have the most updated numbers.
Okay.
At the junior high level, we have 12 seventh graders signed up and 12 eighth graders signed up.
That's
So
wonderful.
that's a very nice number, I think. I don't know, where they're starting at the junior high level. Will they stay the course? Will they be eligible once they hit ninth grade? Maybe or maybe not.
Does Coach
So-
Norman have a list of those players, so he can see what we have, so we don't end up in this situation in 4 years, where my kids are going through this?
So coach, do you have access in Family ID to see the
I do
junior
have
high
access-
roster?
I have access to family ID, like I said, in Monday meeting. I very much
Involved.
approached the subject of, 2 years ago, we didn't have a junior high program. And I said, we have to worry about the numbers. And then Mr. Hendrick sat right, and I asked him, we had that meeting in January. I know I've been talking to Mr. Shaw about this since after last season, that we have to start worrying about numbers, because that junior high team, that we only had like 9 kids, and they showed up to practice every day of the week. They played one scrimmage against Athens. We had like 12 kids, and then some kids went away, some kids got hurt, but that's the issue, is I saw the numbers coming, and I made it very well clear that we have to start looking at this. And I knew how co-ops work a little bit, I don't know the letter of the law, but that's why I said we have to start looking at this stuff, because if kids are either not coming out and fitness, because like all of a sudden I went from 13 kids that just graduated played for me to, I think the closest number is like 7 in a class. But it's this class, that 7th and 8th grade group that came up from junior high that I already noticed and I spotted for 2 years now. And I've made it known. Mr. Shaw can attest to this.
I can attest to it.
And my whole staff can attest to it. We've made it, I've made it known, we're like, we got a problem coming up unless kids wanna come out. And some, like I said, a lot of people done recruiting, the staff, parents, kids, and kids just blatantly say, and I think it's on every sport, I'm not just saying football, I know it's every sport struggling, is I don't wanna play. And I don't know how to fix that. Usually, like I said, usually winning fixes things, or having fun. And I think we have a lot of fun playing football, and we do win some games. We made districts every year but COVID. So I just don't, we've tried everything. We've tried everything to get kids come out. And I don't know what would work with it. I honestly don't know, besides obviously paying them money.
So listening to this gentleman down here that's got his hand raised, the coach, I mean, how many kids do we have today signed up for football?
So I looked this morning, again, it was still sitting at 25 on the varsity, and then I looked again at 3, and 3 more students signed up, so now it's at 28.
So we have 28 kids signed up, and what's our minimum number?
25.
So 25 is our minimum number. Hold that thought, please. So if we have enough kids to play, God bless you, and the recommendation is to have a junior team where the seniors can play, and that lets cheerleading play, that lets the band play on our field, that lets all those other components, you know, the artists to paint the field for seniors week, homecoming, all of that stuff. Why would, we understand we're in a building season, we're in a rebuilding season. We understand that we got 7th and 8th graders, we got 12 and 12, and we did, I mean, and they will be here coming up. I mean, are they gonna want to come up if we're playing, if we're co-oping with Athens? I mean, I don't know, like I said, I'm not the sports guy, but I'm just thinking that what we had gave the opportunity for everybody to play here.
Keep in mind that JV schedule is on a Monday and Tuesday night.
I understand that. I understand it's not the ideal thing, but neither is a co-op. I mean, I'm glad to see these guys from Athens that are here tonight listening in, but they might go to their board and their board might say no. And practice is supposed to start Monday. And what do we do, right? So, and Dr. Delosio a while back would like to see Mr. Shaw and his athletic committee sit down and have these tough conversations as to whether or not we can support all of these teams. Right, but it's just, today it's Thursday, we're talking Monday.
We've had those discussions for 2.5 years.
And we just have to pull the trigger, and you know that, right?
But I just wanna make it clear,
Right,
it's
we
been
have to pull the
2.5
trigger.
years, not just football, numbers in every sport.
Absolutely.
2 years ago, we didn't have girls' basketball.
Right.
We've never filled out a wrestling team.
Never.
Not even close,
Yep.
right? I talked to Dr. Delosio yesterday. We have good numbers in boys' basketball, correct? And we have good numbers in boys' baseball,
That's
right?
for the spring.
All the rest of our numbers, until these new numbers for football, were low for every sport, correct?
Sure.
Right? And I don't know why it's only one option. Why is it only JV only? Why is it not an option tonight to possibly co-op with Athens? The worst they say is no, right?
We have a
They-
motion and a second on that.
Right, I mean, they graciously took us last year for soccer, which was at the 11th hour. We did it for swimming with them, we did it with cross-country, and then we rescinded cross-country in June, right? So Athens has been a good neighbor to us. I think everyone would agree
They've
to that.
been more than gracious, and every
Right.
time we started, we yanked the rug out from under them, they're still willing to be a good neighbor. One other question though about Mr. Skirpon's motion is, I mean, and I agree with you, Mr. Shaw, that, you know, why isn't it all together, right? Because if we just say we're gonna co-op with Athens, and that doesn't happen, then what? Are we ending the season?
Well, that's why it should be 2 motions.
Right, but that's not what the motion on the floor was, so maybe we need to reword
And
that.
that's my point, is it should have been 2 options. Why is it only 1 option? Why are we pigeonholing ourselves?
We can rescind that and make a new motion.
So, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, the only, again, the on again, off again with Athens.
Right.
My only perspective is to be all in to get the decision. We certainly can, if, we can add an if to the motion that says if Athens says no and or PIAA says no, then we do B. We can do that.
Well, I think tonight we need a plan A and a plan B, because practice is Monday. And then we have all those other kids we have to think about, and where are they at in this motion? Well, I'm sorry, Adam, you got, And then this gentleman back here too, so.
Mrs. Chilson.
Mrs. Chilson, did you want to finish? Sorry.
Oh, I would like to. but-
Go ahead, please.
So my comment is, and I know there's other parents in here that have the same concern, because I've gotten messages from them. I can't speak for the cheerleaders. You guys are your own. The band can't just easily combine. Our band kids have been out on that field for the last 40 hours of this week doing their program, plus time before that. Athens band, they're known for doing 2 weeks of band camp, which I don't know if they've done it. Maybe they've done part of it, I don't know. But if I were a band member and I was told you have to scrap all this and combine, number one, our kids are gonna feel defeated. And number two, the Athens kids, if they're told they have to scrap everything and start over, are they gonna be real welcoming to our kids? I wouldn't be.
And what about the band directors? We have a new band director who's brought more kids in even this week once it started. And where's the respect for him and for the band director at Athens? I'm sorry you don't like my lack of leadership comment, but every question someone asked, you had an answer from somebody in this group out here. Who are we paying to know the rules? Who are we paying to find out what the information is so that we can have answers? You called the meeting, Dr. Jill. You should have had answers for the public because Mr. Claypool can't be here. And yet every answer about a rule, Mr. Petrini, I know you're not a sports guy, but you're the board president and it's a special meeting. If this was an industry and the leaders that we pay to run the meeting come without the knowledge and the answers, you'd be fired. I'm sorry, this is outrageous. I brought it up January 17th and I was dismissed. I'm glad you got teachers, but you dismissed that I said we weren't gonna have a football team. And yesterday I got calls from 3 other districts that nobody in Sayre would take their calls and their teams are hanging out there because they don't know what to do about their varsity schedule. And you think people, I love your idea. No one wants to work with us. We are like the redheaded stepchild of the NTL. And they didn't even know in other schools that we had a new high school principal. And in Pennsylvania, it is the principal who oversees athletics. And they thought Dayton Hendrick was still the principal in the principal's group. Now maybe Athens knows because they're our next door neighbor. And yet you want to tell me that you do communication here? Accountability and communication were the top 2 words on your word splash. And we don't get either one. Nice newsletter, we have a curriculum and communications principal. Why aren't they involved? We have a new principal. God bless her for taking it on. She didn't even come to her first meeting. She's not even here for this. And she's in charge of athletics technically. I mean, what do you really expect us as a community to think? You want Athens to keep bailing us out? We pull the rug out from under them? What about their kids? What about their parents? They're supposed to sacrifice their time for our kids? Dr. Jill, you owe us better than that. You're the CEO of this organization. And it is time that you step up and make you and the people around you do your job well, because you make a damn good salary.
Mrs. Berry, I think she did. She said she'd like to recommend a junior varsity
But
team.
she had no answers for any questions,
I let you
Mr.
talk.
Petrini.
I let you talk, Mrs. Berry. She has it here. She has a recommendation for our kids to play here.
But that recommendation is not based on any information that she can ask questions on.
Information.
Okay? She didn't even find out if band and cheerleaders could participate. So there's 2 groups of kids that we don't care about here. And I am a band mother. And I'm so happy to have a new band director that wanted to be here. What a great way to crush his spirit.
So am I, Margaret, and I'd like to see that band play here at Sayre. This would give that opportunity.
Mr. Skirbon, I have a question for you, not to cut Pete off. Who put that letter, press release, or whatever it was, that the Evening Times, it had to come from somebody in Sayre School District, did it not?
That's correct, it was signed off by Barry Claypool. I oversaw that, the letter that went out yesterday to the.
Whatever the Morning Times reported. So if is it truly, it is a done deal that we're not having football? Because that's what that letter states.
So, no, the letter states that we were recommending a junior varsity and that we were still continuing to look at every options. If you look at the second paragraph, it states that it was agonizing for our seniors, feeling bad, but we were continuing, the second sentence says that we are continuing to look at every option out there. And I explained those tonight. The 8-man team, the co-op with Athens I called on Tuesday. All of those pieces I did, right? And the answers that I've received from PIAA, everything I've passed to them, I have gotten back. And I've shared that information that I have received communication and received answers and direction from Chris Venna. And then after we get that, Mr. Howie was at the PIAA, right? And so if I can, share some other information that was said. So Mrs. Ely is our new high school principal, and prior to her accepting the position, she had a family vacation camp scheduled this week. It's the only week she took off the entire summer. She works all summer. It's the only week. I was not going to reject that to tell her to cancel her family vacation that was paid for. Mr. Claypool also traditionally takes the first week of August with his family because it works out for all of them. I happened to be off last week. We try to coordinate so that we're not off on the same week, Mr. Claypool and I. So I apologize that he's not here, but I wasn't going to ask him to cancel his vacation or come back early.
I wouldn't expect you to. I appreciate that.
So I did as much as I could. I have been on the phone. I spoke with Mrs. Horton last evening after I had gotten an email, and I called her. I have been working on this nonstop since probably Monday night and then Tuesday morning. And there are other things that I have to do to get ready for the start of the school year, but this has been my focus for more than 48 hours.
So I appreciate all your efforts, but if you remember, you've seen my face a lot, right, in the last few years?
Oh, I would absolutely.
And how many times have I asked you about sports?
Oh,
Right?
a good
And
day.
I asked you about girls' basketball a few years ago, right, and the numbers and not playing, and we didn't play a whole season of varsity basketball, and so what I'm trying to say to you is, and I'm not trying to be mean or anything else, but obviously we have an issue and it's not being addressed. I don't know whose fault it is, but I can tell you this, somebody's not making sure people are doing their job. And where I come from, it's the leader. You are the leader. So I'm asking you in front of all these people tonight to please, whatever you do, I don't care if sports, academics, teaching, please, make people responsible. Because you know exactly what I'm talking about, and I'm not gonna say it in front of these folks here, but this should not even be happening. Coach Gorman told you folks this. February, we talked about it in November at the end of the season. So somewhere, somehow, and I say this, and unfortunately you're getting the brunt, it's your fault. Because you are the leader. So, and Mr. Guccini can be mad at me, but he's also the board president. His responsibility is to make sure you're doing your job and the board knows that everybody's doing their job. And unfortunately, in my opinion, you're not doing your job. I don't know if that's just you or collectively, but we need to fix it now. Not just sports, everything. I asked you about the swimming pool. We use it one time a year and we're filling how many thousands of gallons of water and treating it and heating it? So it's not just sports and it's not just this program, and I feel bad for these kids. But we as a district have to do what's right, and I've said that more than once in our meetings. So somehow you better fix it, because I think you are the CEO.
A couple comments. The JV, go ahead, I'll defer.
My name is Roxanne Stevens Teston. I've never been to a meeting before. Excuse my voice is a little hoarse. I normally have a much louder voice. And I will make sure that you can all hear me. I just want to address Ms. Chilson, former band singer, all right, many decades ago. I just know that two bands can be at any football game.
That's exactly what I
And what we
recommend.
did in the past is someone played pregame, someone played halftime. And I'm certain that can be done also if there is a
That was
combination.
exactly the
And
point
they
that I
can do
put in
both
the email.
and use it. So there should be no problem. Two performances done at every game, that can work out. Not playing together, but playing their each other halftime.
That's
And
exactly
it
the
will work
point
out.
that I brought up in the email. They
Okay.
need to look at different options and not just collectively say.
No, not playing together. So they'll both be performing. And that can be done.
High school game recently, though, most schools are traveling with their own bands, so the
Yes.
home team plays pregame and the
Right.
kids can keep plays.
Pregame and
at
halftime.
halftime. So even if that were to be the case with that, we wouldn't have a space for the
So-
Sarah band. because
Couldn't
they-
you alternate?
No, I think better the answer, and I'm not speaking, even know anything, if, I don't know what your performance, 12
That's-
kids each? So each team, you just asked this year or whatever, 12 minutes for each band, 25-minute halftime. I know that's not normal, but you could work around it.
That's been done in the past also.
If you can
But
work
I'm just
around
saying
it
that's
for
been done.
this
So-
particular circumstance.
I just wanted to make her feel happy that, you know, I just want to get the band thing out of the way.
Thank you
So
very
that
much.
should be done.
Yes, sir.
So I know they said that there's 28 on Family ID, but that's not foolproof. I coach basketball, there's many kids that are on there that don't show up. So how do we know that all 28 are gonna show up to be able to have that team, number one? Number two, members of the board have already had discussions with Athens, and people shot it down. They didn't wanna hear it about co-ops, and now we're, like Mr. Sturban said, 11th hour, we don't know what to do because we didn't wanna hear it when they brought it up originally. So we kind of put ourselves in this position as well.
The two comments, one, thank you for your comment, because that's exactly where I was gonna go with one of my, I think both on the cheerleading side and the band side, it's not the, when I think of co-op, in general, certain things are technical, other things are just cooperation on how we can make it work, and I think there's lots of ways to make that work. Secondly, on the junior high, the JV program, by stating that we're gonna have our own JV program, we eliminate the co-op. Because you can't, so that's why that letter really dictated no co-op, even though we said co-op. That's not, in fact, we can't do that. We can't have a JV program in co-op.
And we,
So,
if I could just respond to that, we have not had the answer from Chris yet on that.
Yeah.
Just wanna make sure.
yeah, well, and all the, and then.
It's in the, and after I kept reading through the 50 pages of the bylaws, it's there.
I want to
Just didn't get that far.
clarify something with the band, and Mr. Stage can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in Athens, band is a credited class, correct?
They can receive an elective credit for participating
Yes,
in the band.
so that's different than our school. If it did come to a co-op, I just wanted to point that out, that we could do something, I don't know if that's allowed.
Mr. Petrini, if I can clarify that for you guys, I don't want to be, I'm not a resident or a taxpayer.
Appreciate it, Mr. Stage.
You're always welcome.
So the problem with having our marching band or our band with an elective credit is that it's a course, it's a class. Not every kid that participates in our band gets that credit because some of them have other classes going on. However, it is a course. And because you guys offer music and we offer music, that cooperation agreement can't necessarily happen. So when you look at, when you offer programs that other districts don't offer, that's the only really time that you can have students from other districts attend. So that one would be much more complicated. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it would take a lot more work and not something that we could probably accomplish in 72 hours.
But I think at this point, I think based on the dialogue, what we'd say is kind of joint participation, not joining.
It's always
Cooperation, not a co-op.
Right, cooperation, collaboration, however you want to say it.
conversation outside of my skill set.
Thank you.
So anyway, back to the motion and amended as such to collaborate on cheerleading and band. I think that motion
I
is.
think cheerleading would have to be a co-op, correct? Since they have a PIAA sanctioned competition team?
I don't know. I know that the competition portion is, I believe, the PIAA part. I don't know about sideline cheer. That could be something totally different. I do not know.
And does Athens have competitive cheer?
Currently, I believe our football cheerleaders don't participate in competitive cheer. I just got some feedback on that, so. I don't know how that would work because I do believe Sarah does. So
Right.
that's another complicated matter. The discussion on Tuesday was football, and like Dr. Delozio, I've also been working relatively hard at making sure that we secure answers. that
maybe
was-
athletes
that
would
was
like to
one
co-op
that
with
brought
us
up.
for our competition cheer, maybe those girls would like to come over and join the competition cheer.
Something we could definitely offer.
And a lot of this
Think
has
of
to be.
how good these kids could be together.
Has cheer already started, like band's already started, or not yet?
Not officially they've been doing summer open gyms, but not, I believe the official start date is the 15th, I believe.
So they don't have a routine or anything that they have to.
Oh, they do, because they do a lot of that in open gyms, but not, no, it's something that could be built. Right.
As we go forward to build these co-ops, I would like to point out that today we received an email as parents for the junior high soccer program. And the coach in Athens is the coach, and he was not aware that we go to school till 3:26. And he has the practices scheduled for 3:30, and he said he received no input from SARE. He didn't even have the list of our kids till today. And so I'm just saying, I think co-ops are great, but we have to establish better communication between the district, because, I mean, we don't have any plan for getting our junior high kids to Athens, is what I was told by the Athens AD, and that's what I was told by Mr. Shaw, and Mr. Claypool's not available. So that's an important issue. Last year, when we had soccer kids go to Athens, they were seniors. Junior high kids can't drive, and they're not gonna get from Sayre to Athens at 3:30. So I think saying let's do co-op is great, but how does this process work so that people sit down together at a table and iron out, what the issues are? And some parents asked in the email group that I was in with the Athens coach, do you practice specifically at Athens? Or do you also go to SRU? But of course, we didn't get the email till late today, so we don't have an answer. Are we planning to provide transportation for our students to games and from games and practices back to our school if we co-op? I don't know. I don't know how that happens. But I was told that, perhaps some kids didn't swim or do varsity soccer last year with Athens because they didn't have transportation. I don't know that to be true, but I can tell you that if there's not transportation, I know at least 4 junior high kids who will not participate in Athens because their parents are working and they have no way to get their children to Athens Junior High. So as Devin commented, numbers and family ID aren't set in stone, because again, there's a whole communication piece missing. When you start a co-op, that's a whole new culture. The other thing that comes to play, and I sent an email to you, Dr. Jill, and I sent an information to Mr. Sullivan. If we co-op sports, any of them, will both schools be accepting sports passes interchangeably? Because if I have a student playing one sport in Sayre and one sport in Athens, do I have to buy 2 sports passes? At a time when we're in a recession, and now kids at Sayre even have to buy their high school lunch, families are strapped. It may not seem like a big deal to a lot of people, but that's a big deal for grandparents, parents, and again, that never made it to the table. So I'm wondering how deep these discussions need to go as we start these co-op discussions. It's not, yeah, you can just play. There's a lot of facets to it, and I think we need to look deeper into it, or we're gonna have a lot more issues as we add more co-ops.
I agree with you, Margaret. I think it's something that our athletic committee needs to get together and what are all the questions? These are all the questions we have. What are we doing moving forward? And like Jim said, we've talked about it for 2 years. We have to pull a trigger. That all has to be out and all has to be spelled out and all has to be written and thought, and then contact Athens. If we're gonna continue this cooperation, then get a hold of you don't have an athletic committee, right? It's an extracurricular committee or something. You get a hold of their extracurricular committee and say, hey, these are the things that we need to iron out and have it all set in stone. And then bring it back to the board. Like we have these discussions and they're great, but it should be done at committee and then brought forth as a recommendation to the board.
Can I put a motion to contact Athens?
Well, you can't motion that.
Listen, I have to tell you that I spoke to members at Athens on their committees, and they are telling me that Sayre, not their athletic committee, but their board president and their superintendent are not responding to communication. That may not be in fact true, but that's what I was being told. And Miss Wayman back here, who served as the athletic chair for a long time, brought all these discussions to the table, and every time she was shut down. Every time in the 4 years I was on the board with her. So please don't push it back on an athletic committee. Again, it's a top level failure of leadership, because athletic committees don't make decisions, and she brought plenty of feedback back in my time on this board, and nobody would act on it.
I understand that's.
Okay, so, but please, let's not push it on the athletic committee, Mr. Catrini, because it's not them.
Mr. Petrini, I have a question. I attended the meeting the other night, and I appreciated both of you zooming in with your input. And I heard you say, and I haven't been the best at attending board meetings, I've attended many of them and watched them online. I hear a reoccurring theme, and I feel it in every ounce of my being, that we're lacking in moving forward. Like, can't seem to get out of our own way, and it's embarrassing to sit in front of Athens again, groveling at the 12th hour. What can we do, like, what can you tell us right now that we are changing from here moving forward, because we can't fix the mistakes of the past? We continue to keep making the same mistakes over and over, because I heard Mr. Sherpan say, we've had this conversation over and over and over. We need to move that from conversation to action, because this is frustrating.
Absolutely.
It should not be the topic of conversation 2 weeks prior to the start of the school year for any of the people in this room. And I agree with you when you say, you know, where are all you people during I sit on many boards, and when you don't have this many people, it's a good thing, because things are going smooth and nobody's complaining, like they're happy. When you're seeing all this, there's a problem. So what can we do from here forward to make it that a year from now, we're not still sitting there saying, we need to have this discussion, like, we're beyond that. What can we do from here forward to fix this? Like, I'm asking the board, what are we doing moving forward? Because we can't keep doing this.
I think in regards to sports as a board, we do need to look at the co-op option across the board. I think as a board, we need to seriously look at what our options are.
And when does that occur? I almost think we need to be able to come
Like
to the
now.
timeline. It can't be Mr. Sherman saying, we talked about this a year ago, and he's a component saying, we had this conversation, like, talk is cheap, like, we need a plan.
Right.
We're spinning in circles, and it's embarrassing to read it on your paper. Like, we have a room full of educated people with lots of great ideas that we can sit together on a committee to move forward, to make it that we're not sitting in this spot again.
And if I may comment, you said that the August 15th is the deadline for winter, which we're not talking about here. I don't want to take away from football, but we don't have enough girls basketball players as well, and we're gonna pass that deadline before we get to talk about that. So we're gonna be sitting here again past the deadline.
No.
So we do need to do something.
So the athletic committee is meeting next week on, which day, Mr.
Monday.
Monday. They have to make a final decision, bring it to the board for the vote on the 15th, and the paperwork will go the next day.
Okay, so we will
So
have it
when
done
we
before the
formed,
15th.
we put together the co-op for soccer, I believe it was the coaches and the ADs, and they put together the rules and regs and all of the communication pieces for that co-op, right? That was to happen between the AD, the coaches, and then push that information forward. So we have that information
So
for.
that is in the works for winter sports right now. We're not just.
For all winter sports,
Oh,
not just.
yeah, not just basketball. Yes.
All winter sports. Yeah, the conversation is to happen next Monday for all winter sports.
And swimming would be part of that now?
Absolutely.
We already got rid of
Because
swimming.
any winter sport, right?
No, we already co-op with that.
Yes. We're not pulling that back, I think it was a 2 year.
And then another clarification about co-op, I could be wrong on this, but I think I'm right. Once we enter a co-op with anybody, it stays in place until one school decides to pull it. It's not a 2-year thing or a 1-year thing.
It's initial 2, but then.
Well, it's
just
initial
goes
2,
on.
right?
Initial 2, and then it's.
Keeps going.
It keeps going until someone wants to pull out,
That is correct.
right? So I just wanna make that clarification, so people understand about co-ops.
When you
So-
gave the numbers for the sports declining, you said they're all declining, but you listed, boys sports, including girls in those numbers?
No, they all are declining.
All declining, except basketball and baseball.
Just in general, the combined enrollment of both Athens and Sarah, since the late 70s has declined 40%. The combined enrollment. So you don't want, that's the thing, it's a much bigger picture that we should be looking at. Our schools individually, back in 1977, 78, were almost the size of the combined districts today. We're maybe 20% bigger than that. It's dramatic of what has happened over time if you take a look at enrollment. Sarah's landlocked. Sarah, I mean, you know, we can talk about all the issues relative to trying to educate our students and the reimbursements we get from the state and whatnot, but we're not growing. We can't grow. The boundaries, I mean, whoever set the boundaries, they're there. They're the strangest boundaries in the world. Right? On one side of the street you go to Athens, on the other side of the street you go to Sayre. So the bottom line is this community as a whole, I guess I've matured over time to look at this in a different manner, but we're a community, and to have two districts a mile apart and be fragmented and have industries that may want to be more all in supporting education and they have to be fragmented is complicated. So I think there's a lot associated with it. But what was it? We have a motion and a second on the table.
I mean, what exactly is the motion?
The motion is to officially request, because I heard Bill say we need to put on letterhead, a co-op for football, including collaboration on band and cheerleading, not co-op, make that official recommendation and official request. That's a motion.
So could we add to that, if it doesn't work out, like, well, we're not sure, can we go to at least having the JV to do something? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't want nothing.
Right,
I don't want
but if we
nothing.
don't add that right now, right, then we're coming back
That's fine.
again to do that. So
That's-
if anything, could we at least add
That's
that?
the fallback
that if
position
we
in my-
can't do the
from my
co-op?
Could it say if all options fail,
Yep.
we would do it?
Right, at least they have
Right.
something for.
I don't
something.
wanna just say Athens, because what if
Yep.
another school calls and says, hey, we're willing to do it?
Okay.
I think this gentleman has a question.
I just have two more things, and I'm real brief. First of all, I have attended those athletic committee meetings, and I was in there with every coach that's here and coaches that aren't here tonight, and we would discuss numbers back then, and I know that was presented to somebody. And another thing I'd go out and thank you, Mr. Shaw, for clearing it up, that it's 2 years, and then after that, you can pull out after that 2 years. It's like renting a house, you gotta have first and last one. Okay, so, that's important that they know that. And another thing, it was not clarified a couple months ago, and this was discussed to the rest of the public, maybe it was, maybe I'm just a slow pick up on this. But I did some research, because I didn't understand exactly what a co-op was at first. But you read about it, and then it starts making sense. But people, when they first hear that word, they're thinking that the athletic committee's trying to just say, we're going to merge, we're gonna do an acquisition, we're gonna do whatever, okay? Another question on co-op, so, how many kids from Athens, or from Sarah, co-op in soccer this year? Tell me that really quick, and then one more statement. And then I'm done. Thank you.
Boys soccer, we have 4.
4 co-op and varsity,
I have 4 for boys soccer, that would be 9 to 12.
9 to 12, and then
And then
girls.
for girls soccer, 2 participated with Athens.
Okay, how many did we have last year?
That was last year.
How about this year?
Okay, this year we have signed up in family ID for boys, 2,
Yep,
and for girls, 6.
so 6. So they're not having a problem going on.
I'm sorry,
Even if you take other fall sports away.
So they're not going on, they're not going to Athens to play, okay? I mean, I've only lived in this community for 20 years, all right? And I know that I've watched all the Athens kids play. I can't even look at these guys, 'cause I've been watching them play since they were this big. All right, every sport, baseball, football, basketball. I saw a game in Canton, one of you two might have been fishing. They ran a flea flicker reverse. They had 22 kids on that team. It was against Kansas, I was in Mansfield. One of the best PB games I've ever seen in my life. And these kids are on that team, every one of them, all right? And Athens, I remember, thank you very much for coming on, guys, all right? I remember watching them scrimmage when they were doing Pee-wee. The Athens kids and the Sarah kids, they got no problem playing together. I see them riding bikes, I see them at dinner together. I see them doing all this stuff, all right? And I'm sorry we have to come to you at this point when everything is falling apart, but I wish you guys the best. Good luck, that's all I got. I hope you guys make a great decision.
Thank you very much, sir.
I just want to respond to Evie really
Chair
quick.
Manager.
So we are going to discuss it at the athletics committee on Monday.
How to move forward with some changes?
Well, and especially like the co-op piece of it for sports, for the winter specifically, but we're gonna start looking at that on the sports side.
Now,
played soccer when it was at Sayre. Was it her favorite sport? No, so that's why she decided not to go to Athens, because she knew that going there, she's not gonna be the star athlete, and she knew she didn't wanna do that. So, some kids are discouraged because we are going to Athens. Now, I know that these seniors, absolutely, they'll do anything to play, I get it. But you are gonna lose athletes also, because, number one, the transportation. When you make this motion, are you guaranteeing also that we're gonna get those JV students over there? Because you might have all these students signed up for football right now, but once you co-op with Athens, can they get there? Because they can't go from school here down to the practice field. You are requiring them to go over to Athens, so how are they getting there? So when you make this decision, are you also guaranteeing that you will get those kids there, because that changes the whole outcome?
And there's also another aspect.
Now, Mike is a ninth grader playing soccer, and he's so excited for the season to start, even if he is putting on an Athens jersey.
Right, like I'm saying, it goes both ways.
And I think that Mr. Huey spoke very nicely Monday evening about the co-op with the soccer team and how it came together and meshed very nicely. He did a great job Monday evening and shared that information with the board.
Yeah, and she likes Athens kids, it's just something she knew she wasn't gonna excel, she's not her star there, and so she just decided not to go, so it was her choice. But had she been there, she would have played soccer. Yes, they do, they have a lot of players, so you're not gonna.
The only other thing I haven't heard mentioned here at all, and again, I love them dearly, but what about the coaching staff? Has anybody approached Athens about if any of the coaches are gonna be able to coach, not coach?
I think all that's part of the discussion, right?
Okay, but I haven't heard it mentioned, and so.
We have to take, that's my,
Well, I don't wanna put in my.
but Mr. Shaw, that's my point. I think we need.
Mr. Gorman can answer that.
I've said this on Monday, I've said this over time. I've seen Coach Young we meet as District 4 head coaches basically throughout the whole entire time. If it came to a co-op, I am not arrogant or cocky enough to say, no way. It's fine. I would take a step. It's about him, those kids back there. It's not about Coach Gorman. I can do without whatever I get paid. It's fine. I do this because I enjoy football and I enjoy being around the kids. But I want to take this means I'm taking a step back to send my kids over to Athens so that at least they can play a season. That's fine. It's not gonna kill me. This isn't my end all be all. This isn't my full-time job. It's fine. I enjoy it. But if it means Austin and Luke and all Nate and them can go and play, then and Athens obviously accepts it, then it's fine. I've talked it over. I've told Mr. Shaw this. I know Devin's been in meetings with me when I've said this. I've said it. I'm fine. If I have to take a step back, and I'm pretty sure my staff is okay with that. I mean, my junior high staff is still here. If the junior high stays, Coach Horton's on my staff. He's fine with it. Coach Harp's fine with it. Coach Yak's fine with it. We're fine with it if that means our kids can go play football or go do whatever. I understand I'm missing the band portion. I don't know band. That's not my expertise or cheerleading. But when it comes to these kids, I'm gladly taking a step back if that means they can play football. I'm fine with it. And as I told, I think, Dr. Jill, I said, come Monday, I said, I'll be here. I'll coach them. Just tell me what I'm coaching and I'll just coach it. Everyone knows my opinion on the board because I spoke on Monday. It's out of my hands now. Like I say, it's not my decision, but if it means I have to take a step back for these kids to play, I'm perfectly fine with it, and so is my staff.
Okay, but I just wanna make sure that you knew and your coaching staff knew that you guys are as much important as the kids. So I just wanna make sure that was involved, that you guys put your heart and soul in, and that's all the reason I said that.
Thank you, Coach Gorman, and I think you guys are all right. There's 1,000 pieces to this puzzle, and I think Mr. Skirpon was going to start. We have to pull the trigger. Going back to what Mrs. Romberger was saying, we have to pull the trigger. We have a motion on the table, and this could all be moot. Athens might say no.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, but
We haven't voted yet.
We haven't even voted yet.
I don't know what our
say no.
collective board's gonna decide.
Dr. Jill?
So anyway, I have a motion on the table can you read that motion?
I just have one more question that maybe helps influence you. Dr. Jill,
All right.
how many people have left our district since June 3rd?
Oh, I did the enrollment Monday night. I don't have that paper right in front of me right now. Hold on, let me see if I can look. Do you have it?
67 Sarah students have gone to Waverly.
67?
And Waverly cannot take any more second graders, fifth graders, or eighth graders, because so many left there.
Well, that also should help you guys think that, hey, we.
Wait a minute, hold
Can I
on,
ask
she
you
hasn't
the
answered the
number?
question.
Thank
She's
you.
got the numbers.
So since the end of June, which, given, this is just the timeline I have in front of me. At the end of June, the elementary enrollment was 474. Currently, the elementary enrollment is 468. For the junior and senior high school, at the end of June, it was 939.
Oh, that's the whole, that's the.
Oh, I'm sorry, 465. And at, currently, which was as of Monday, was 466. So the high school gained 1 and the elementary lost 6.
So it wasn't 67.
However, some people could have moved in, we had kindergartners register.
Right, so that
So-
includes, you have a
Right.
point, that includes, the kindergarten at the end of June was 54, and by last Monday it was 63.
And that's the greatest variable, right? That goes back to you, family ID is not an exact, these kids might not be eligible, right? They might move on, we might get an influx in, that part changes almost daily.
There were several parents who have said, when we've been at these camps, I was at a basketball camp in Waverly, I've been at soccer camp in Athens. And the one consistent message from SARE parents are, we love SARE, but we spend money in the off-season for camps, for our kids to, go to, extra training with a coach and things like that. And we are investing in our child's sport. And then our board doesn't have the respect to think, wow, I've spent all this money all summer. Oh, travel teams was the other thing, to increase their kids' ability. And then all of a sudden the season comes, and because of our population numbers, there's no certainty. I would like you to consider asking Athens or neighboring districts for a co-op across the board. So parents and kids had a certainty starting at a young age that numbers are not going to be a problem. A lot of people are very disheartened and their kids just don't want any part of us. And the bulk of people who have transferred out, that's while their kids are young. That's one of the things they're seeing, because it's always the 11th hour, a Band-Aid on the wound. You may think that I'm just saying that, but I'm telling you, that's the message out there. So Mrs. Kmetz, perhaps you guys could come up with a situation. Maybe you have to meet with multiple athletic committees in the NTL to figure out, what the best fit would be for SARE. Because these families are pulling out because they don't want the uncertainty. And the band is the same thing. We have a boy who just bought a brand new trumpet. So that, because his was broken because he came back to band. What if they don't get to play? How's his parent gonna feel? There's a lot to this, and I know your job is free. I did it. But the bottom line is, as Mr. Skirpon and everyone here said, you can't keep putting a ban on it because of some people's self-interest that they want to protect our tradition. We can't do that anymore. It's a bigger world. We need to prepare our kids for a bigger world. Most kids from here don't even stay. We can't keep the mindset we had when I graduated in 1988. So please, would you explore for all sports to just ensure that we're going to have them?
Because of the PIAA, you're gonna see a lot of decisions made by kids before they get to ninth grade. Because they aren't gonna take a year off of sports. That's why this is important to get the athletic committee gets on top of this. Because you have 12 and 12 right now for junior high football. And I love those kids, I've coached them too. Or sorry, second grade, first grade, kindergarten. But they also know, because everybody in here can read the internet, if you start at varsity in ninth grade, you have to take a year off. If you go sit when our schools can't play, or you have to move. People are leaving and they're gonna do it before you even worry about anything else before ninth grade, and that's what's gonna happen. And especially when the domino effect from this show happens, when this domino effect happens, and it starts going to other sports, because people start paying to play somewhere else, or picking up, getting apartments, and going to stay with their grandparents because of this domino effect's gonna take your district baseball team out too. Your basketball team, which is already going, is gonna go, which is already declining, is gonna decline even more, and your district baseball's gone, and then we're sitting here saying an hour ago, which we should just get on and vote, so I'll bring this up. Saying an hour ago, we don't need to go on, we don't need to worry about, we have numbers for basketball, we have numbers for baseball. well, if this domino effect happens, you're not gonna have numbers for them. So get the co-op going, so the kids that want to stay in Center and not move, and parents don't want to pay that money, can still send their kids to this school, and they don't have to worry about them playing sports. And when they brought it up a year ago, we should have looked into it a little more, maybe we should have defined it a little more on what exactly a co-op was, so people didn't throw their hands in the air and say, I'm not going to Athens, I played football in Center in 1982. Nobody cares. Thank you, please vote, I have to go eat dinner, get a shower.
So, thank you, Mr. I don't wanna put anyone on the spot, but I would like, if someone's comfortable over there from the Athens corner, just to get a kind of pulse on what Athens is thinking.
I don't think we should put them on the spot
Okay.
here. I think we haven't done our job yet. We need to make a formal request. I think it's premature to ask them anything at this point. Let's get to that point, because we need to show a commitment to them that this is what we want to do. We have been fragmented on this board, on this topic, maybe broader, for years. We need to start being focused and committed and create a vision of where we want to go, and we need to work jointly in doing that, I think. So we need, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, I didn't think that's unfair at this point. I think we
I'm
need
just,
to.
from my perspective, you're totally right.
Yeah.
From my perspective, I think we don't have any dialogue, and I see an opportunity.
Yeah, I know. I didn't. Yeah, anyway.
Did you want to add something, Mr. Stage, or? One more thing, Mr. Skirpon, I want to, commitment. Commitment is commitment. It's not, we're gonna do it, and then at the other final hour, we're gonna pull out. People have to understand that if we're going to do this, we're all in. It's not that we're all in today, but tomorrow we have enough numbers and we're pulling out. It's not fair to
But they have to-
them,
agree.
it's
That's
not,
the
and people
coaches
have to,
about it.
the community has to understand that, because so many times we yank the rug
I
out.
agree, and this is, I probably shouldn't even say this, because I don't mean it the way it's gonna come out. The cross-country situation, we shouldn't have backed out. We should not have.
Absolutely.
But that's what I'm saying, it's the
I mean,
coaches that allow
I
it.
miss that meeting, but I'm part of the board, and we pulled out. We should not have pulled out. 6 runners, whether we could have fielded a team or not, it's still not enough runners. It's the bare minimum. So I agree, I'm 100% in.
Maybe the Valley should have a Valley sports team, and we should take sports right out of the schools and just focus on education.
Gee, that's a good
Before you
idea.
make your vote, can I just ask one thing? With you talking about how important it is to all of you and all of us as parents and what this is doing to the community,
Talk to the
these
kids.
showing up to the
Ask the
school board.
kids what they want to
Look
do,
at the
because they are
faces.
all in.
Yeah.
They just want to play sports.
We get that.
And these band girls.
And get a good,
They work really hard all year in 100-degree weather.
Recognize out this entire meeting. That's disgusting to me. You have let down the seniors, athletes, the senior class. It is, I can't even.
I'm not trying to let down anybody.
Disgusting is the only word I can come
The
up with.
thing of it is, we graduated 13 kids off of the varsity team that started last year. So given that number alone, and that we didn't have a JV team, this should have been a no-brainer. But now that it's not, and here we are, nobody's really paying attention. Like, I'm worried about these kids, I keep looking back here at the 3 of them, there's one over here, they're chatting all the time. The numbers are declining in the sports here because they don't wanna sit through this. They hear enough bickering and arguing in the world over all kinds of nonsense. They should be sitting in their own library, listening to parents and school board members fighting out how we're gonna best handle this. We have to take responsibility and let these kids get what they need. I understand education is important, but for some of these kids, sports is the only reason they make it through school. They only keep their grades up so they can play these sports at the end of the day. I hope that somebody's looking the big picture at, it's not us, it's not you, it's these kids that are the ones that are suffering and sitting here listening to all this for, an hour and a half now.
And to go back to Mrs. Romberger, we need to make that decision and be done with it. Have a plan, have it now, not
Einstein's definition of
later.
insanity is doing the same thing over and over
Expecting a
again
different
and
result.
expecting a different outcome over there.
And you guys know I've been saying it for years, so it's not just tonight.
I understand.
You know that.
Yeah, and don't misinterpret extracurricular and or part of the educational program. They're student athletes. And we can't ever lose sight of that. And you're absolutely right. Sometimes that's the avenue for a student to actually excel in the classroom. So we can say it's sports, and we can say we're not, we're focused on sports, not academics. They go hand in hand, and kids should be disciplined on the sport field if they're not doing what they should be in the classroom, and that's another life lesson. So it's all in. So anyway, back
So
to
one
the-
more thing, right? What, can we read that recommendation one more time?
Mr. Shade, you can finish.
No, I don't think
wanted
he-
to. He said no?
Yeah, he said.
Okay.
Okay, I'll try.
So go ahead, Mr. Scribner.
Use a microphone if you would, Pete.
I
Thank you.
Just like a rock star.
Not very long.
I'm gonna try. And people can modify this as appropriate. I'd like to make a motion that we formally request a co-op, and I'll use that word technically, for football with the Athens Area School District, and associated with that we collaborate to find the best solution for the associated supporting roles, band and cheerleading, with that decision. That's a motion. And if they say, and I don't want to say it that way, and if it doesn't.
A second motion.
What's that?
Make the if, two different votes. Make the if a different vote.
No, it could be all in one.
It can be all in one, I think. If and only if we fail to find a co-op solution, and that is either it doesn't work for Athens and they come back and say it's not gonna work for them, or the PIAA says it's not gonna work for them, then we will fall back to a JV program at SARE. That's a motion. Can we get a second?
So we have a motion, right? Do we have a second?
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. I hope there's no more further discussion. Is there any further discussion?
Can we separate those out?
The only thing I was gonna say.
I'm okay. Yeah,
can
we can take.
Can it be worded if and only if we have exhausted all options to allow the seniors to play? Because I feel like if we just say Athens, there's so many other options out there.
I don't think at this late of an hour, but maybe.
Nobody knows that. So I feel like if they're not investigated,
I mean, that could be in the motion. It's just, I think, Lisa, it's to what time
I know,
you develop it. I think that's
I know, but
yeah.
it's just if there's something.
I mean, I'm okay with that because it doesn't really.
It doesn't change the motion, it just gives us that option if there's
And we
something.
can separate it into two. The second one is if, starts with the if. We're not successful in the first motion, so take the first one first, co-op with that.
So first motion. Can you read that? Decipher that there, Mr. Chair?
No.
Okay, the first motion is the Sarah School District requests a formal. Makes a formal request for a co-op in football and the associated other activities, a collaboration with cheerleading and band, and we make that formal request. That's a motion.
So we have a motion and do we have a second?
Second.
And we have a second. So we have a motion and a second.
Let's do that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, second motion.
Motion carries.
Second motion, if and only if those options fail, then we proceed with a JV program. That's a motion.
Second. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Does anybody else have anything for the order? I have a motion for adjournment. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you very much, guys. Have a good night. Guys, thank you so much for coming. Have a good night.